Hi, I'm Cameron and I run BizBud, and we help small businesses, entrepreneurs, digital nomads win at the tax game and not pay more than you have to. And in this video, I want to talk about specifically the franchise excise tax in Tennessee. Obviously, right now I'm not in Tennessee, but we are based in Tennessee, and most of our clients that are based in the US are in Nashville or Tennessee. So we get this question a lot, especially from people that don't live in Tennessee and out of states and want to move to Tennessee, because Tennessee is sold as this place where you don't have to pay any income tax. It's a great place to live. Everyone's moving there, blah, blah, blah. So everyone's like, great, I don't have to pay income tax. It's great. But if you have a business, then you have some special fund taxes that you have to pay. And one of these, the biggest one that we see clients move there and they're like, what is this? It's called the franchise excise tax. And the franchise excise tax is basically a way for the state of Tennessee to generate more revenue for itself. So a lot of these states might not have income tax, state income tax on your income, but they have to generate revenue to pay for things other ways. So they make up other taxes. You know, basically they're just making stuff up to make sure they get money. And one of those is called the franchise excise tax. The franchise tax is 0.25% of your assets value in the business. And then the excise tax is 6.25% of the net income of your business. So that means if you make $100,000, and let's say you're a service, a consultant, you're just offering, consultancy, whether that's you're a dating coach or whether that's you're, an interior designer offering your advice on what to do, then let's say you get paid $100,000 into your LLC or S corp, you would then have to pay 6.25% on $100,000 of net income. So that means $6,250 you would have to pay in tax, excise tax to the state of Tennessee, plus 0.25% with a minimum of $100 franchise tax if you basically held cash or had assets in that business. So that sucks. That's not fun. No one likes that. So now, a caveat there, that franchise excise tax only applies to income you do not pay self-employment tax on, so Social Security and Medicare tax. What that means is that if you're a sole proprietor or if you're a single member LLC, you don't have to pay F&E tax or excise tax because you're paying Social Security, Medicare tax, self-employment tax on that income. If you're an S corp, well, you're not paying the self-employment tax because S corps don't pay self-employment. They don't pay Social Security, Medicare tax, only on the wages, reasonable compensation. We talk about S corps in other videos. So if you watch one of those videos and you remember that, then yeah, S corps don't pay that. But so Tennessee then taxes you have to pay this excise tax. If you're a single member LLC, no excise tax, but you're paying self-employment tax. If you're an S corp, no self-employment tax, but you're paying 6.25%. Self-employment tax is 15.3% or 6.25%. I'd still rather pay 6.25%. So yeah, this really only applies to an S corp. So a lot of people will bring their S corps here. Single member Cs doesn't really apply, or any tax structure or any entity structure where you're not paying full self-employment tax, sometimes C corps. But mainly we're talking to the S corps owners here. So what that means is that you're going to have this extra tax. So you need to make sure before you decide, oh, I need to become an S corp, I need to become an S corp, and you're in Tennessee. If you're running a business in Tennessee and you see online, let's become an S corp, you watched our video, S corp is going to save you money. You need to make sure you run the numbers to see like, okay, yeah, I'm going to save 15.3% on my income, but I'm going to have to pay this 6.25% extra tax that I have to pay. So you need to weigh it. And from our experience, once you get to around 80 to 90 grand of net income, so income after expenses, and you're in Tennessee, then the tax savings are still worth switching to S corp, because what we don't want is you're making 40 to 50 grand and then you become an S corp in Tennessee and you don't save that much in self-employment tax because you have to pay yourself a reasonable salary, and then you have this extra tax, you're actually paying more, then you have more accounting fees to maintain that S corp. So it's just a whole mess and it's costing you more than the gain. So you want to make sure you're making 80 to 90 grand, be 90 grand on the safe side. If you're in Tennessee, then you'll still see those $1,000 of tax savings, even if you become an S corp and you still have to pay this excise tax. So you want to make sure that you make sure you do that. And now Tennessee just announced a little deduction for it. So if you are subject to excise tax, they give you a 50 grand deduction. So if you make 100 grand net income, you only have to pay excise tax on 50 grand. So that's nice that they added that. But it's something you should be aware of. The franchise excise tax Do not do any business in Tennessee without knowing about this, because it's a real killer. Now, is there hope, or are we just subject to this? A little background on the franchise excise tax. You can, if you've ever heard of Kroger, the grocery store, you can blame them. So back in the early 2000s, Kroger, because they knew that they didn't have to pay all this tax in Tennessee, they just set up a bunch of LLCs, entities, and they're like, oh, this is great. I don't have to pay any tax because, you know, we're under the threshold. And so, yeah, we're under the threshold. So they just set up a bunch of different LLCs, so each store would basically be its own LLC, and they would get around the tax. And so the state of Tennessee was like, oh, hang on, you can't do that. We're getting cheated out of money. So they created this excise tax so that any company basically that's set up in Tennessee, you know, I would have to pay this and generate more revenue. So yeah, is there hope? There's a way out of it. We can draft a trust basically that owns the entity, and then you don't have to pay that. And yeah, it's pretty simple like that. So yeah, there is a way out of it, and you don't have to pay the tax. We can help you set up a trust, and then we have our attorneys draft that, and then you actually are exempt from that. There's different exemptions you can get in Tennessee to not actually owe that tax. Now, it is expensive to set those up, so if you're not going to save, if your excise tax isn't over like $5,000 a year, it doesn't make sense to set that up. But once it does become that, then you can talk to us and we can help you get that exemption so you don't have to pay that. So yeah, so if that's your situation, you know anyone in that situation, then let us know and we can help you with that. Yeah, we do this every day, and we want to make sure you know about the franchise excise tax. So now you should know about that. You should not be aware of it. How you pay that, you file the return each year online at TinTap. You log in, create an account, make sure you get an account number, franchise excise tax number, and you get it taken care of, and you're not blindsided by this when you're moving to Tennessee, or if you're in Tennessee. So yeah, let me know if you have any questions on that, and we'll see you in the next video.